Just like a tuna fish sandwich that's been left out in the sun for a few days, I don't think I like much of anything about this case. There's not enough anger and fear, and I'm not talking about the kind of anger and fear that happens when you trust a fart that you shouldn't. We haven't seen any of the criminals try and escape. That's worrisome. You'd think they'd be scared enough to try to and reveal themselves, but no. So either we have someone who's very naive or somebody who's a very cold killer on board, and that makes me angry. Maybe it's time we turn up the heat to poke and prod to see if we can elicit a reaction as we try and find the murderer of Mr. Bolitho Blane. I guess we're going to start off with Reginald. I'm pretty sure he's not been telling us the whole truth. Good morning, Mr. Jocelyn.
Good morning, officer.
There are just a few more things that I want to ask you about the series of events which preceded the discovery of Bolitho Blane's death.
Righto, fire away.
According to your previous statements, you were on the deck with Miss Rocksavage when the yacht sailed from Miami. You both went below together, but in your statements, the times vary. You say that you came down to your cabin at 7:30. Whereas Miss Rocksavage says that you both came down at 7:15. Can you get any nearer to the actual time for me?
I don't think so. You know what life is in pleasant company on board a ship. When you're enjoying yourself, time goes only too quickly. It's always time to have a swim, or go into lunch, or change for dinner or something.
I see. You find Miss Rocksavage's company very enjoyable, then?
Certainly. She's a very amusing and intelligent young woman, and, incidentally, she's my hostess, and so it is her due that I should devote a certain amount of time to her. In this particular case, the duty happens to be a very pleasant one. That's all.
I see. You can't get nearer to the time you went below? Then it might have been 7:15 or it might have been 7:30 then?
No. If Miss Rocksavage said it was 7:15, I don't doubt she's right.
Very well, let's agree that was so. You went below at 7:15 and you did not arrive changed in the lounge until 8:30. That is an hour and a quarter. You don't mean to tell me that it took you all of that time to change?
Dear, dear, dear. How pernickety you policemen are. We went into all this yesterday morning, and I told you then that I always take my time about changing. Moreover, that I often spend a long time lying in my bath.
Can you tell me how long you spent in your bath on the evening in question?
Not exactly, but I was already in it at 7:45, because my wife came down from the lounge at that time, and I asked her what time it was as she came into the cabin.
And she told you 7:45. I find that very interesting.
Why?
You'll find out, friend, before this inquiry is over. Now, it was at your invitation that Count Posadini joined this party, wasn't it?
Yes.
Do you mind telling me when it was that you tumbled to it that the Count was a crook?
What the hell do you mean?
Just what I say. Count Posadini is known to the police and his intimates as Slick Daniels, card sharp and con man who trades the Atlantic ships. Would you like me to tell you just the sum that Slick took off of you on the Normandy before you tumbled to it that he was a crook?
I see. Posadini is a crook, and you found him out, then jumped to it that he murdered Blane, so, to protect himself, he's faked up some cock and bull story involving me, has he? Well, officer, that won't wash, and you needn't think it will. I had not the least reason in the world to wish any ill to Blane, and very fortunately for me, as it happens, my wife can prove that I was lying in my bath at 7:45. When we all know that Blane was still alive from the fact that he scribbled something on the back of the note that was sent down to him at that time.
How'd you know that?
Mr. Rocksavage told me, and, if you don't mind not interrupting, as I was about to add, my wife having been with me in our suite from 7:45 until we arrived in the lounge at 8:30 together, that proves quite conclusively that I had no hand in Blane's death.
Does it, Mr. Jocelyn? I wonder. I am quite satisfied that Slick didn't do this job. Murder is absolutely outside his line of country. Whatever he may have led you to suppose when you had your little talk about Blane on the Normandy.
I suppose that's another portion of Posidini's cock and bull story.
Mr. Jocelyn, it happens to have been my job to spend a good portion of my life examining the criminal classes. And so officers like myself get a sort of feeling as to when they're telling the truth and when they're not. It's my belief that Slick has come clean with me, and, in any case, I'm pretty satisfied about his movements during the time under review, so I think you'd better count him out, pun intended. Now, if we accept his story, it seems that you invited him on board, knowing him to be no better than he should be, and knowing, too, that he had a definite grudge against Bolitho Blane. He took advantage of your invitation because it gave him the opportunity to mix with a swell crowd where he might have picked up a lot of loose money. But if we're to believe his statement, you had far more cause to wish Blane out of the way than he had. You're in a pretty bad spot, Mr. Jocelyn, and I think the time has come when you'd better stop lying and tell the truth.
You're really not suggesting that I murdered Blane, are you?
I am.
But this is fantastic. Besides, I've already told you that my wife can prove that she found me in my bath at 7:45, and that we were never out of each other's sight from that time on, until we went up to dinner at 8:30.
I have just advised you to stop lying, Mr. Jocelyn. Your wife did not find you in your bath at 7:45 because she was somewhere else at that time, and for the best part of half an hour onwards. During that time, I don't know where you were, but it may quite well have been in Blane's cabin. In fact, it's going to look like that unless you can provide some other explanation as to how you were spending your time.
I was in my bath, I tell you. All I know is that when my wife came into the cabin, I asked her the time, and she said that it was 7:45. She may have been wrong. It may have been much later. How the hell do I know?
If it was much later, that doesn't improve your situation, because you definitely wanted Blane out of the way, and unless you can bring evidence to show what you were doing between 7:45 and 8:15, I must assume that since you've lied to me on other matters, you're lying now, and that you were in Blane's cabin.
Now look here, officer. Whether my wife was right or wrong about the time, I don't know. But one thing that stands out a mile is that there is a man on board this yacht who had far more reason to wish Blane out of the way than I ever did.
Who?
Why, Rock Savage, of course. 2 days ago, he was bankrupt. Now that Blane's shares have gone to pot, as anybody knew they would the moment he was dead, Rock Savage has been buying every share in the Blane companies as they come on the market. He was picking up Argus Suds at 17.25 yesterday and Red Mire Syndicates at 32. He's standing in to make a fortune over this thing, because once Blane's death has been announced, he was able to get all the financial banking he needed without the least trouble, whereas nobody would loan him a bob for the last 15 months. He has the whole of the world's soap interest in his pocket today. Don't you realize this? And the thing he's got to thank for it is Blane's death.
Yes, I see that. But there's one point you seem to have forgotten, or perhaps you didn't know it, because you wouldn't have the same opportunity as I've had to check up on these timesheets. Rock Savage did not leave the lounge to go below and change until 8:10, and even then he wasn't back in the lounge until 8:35, 5 minutes late for dinner. A man could hardly have changed in that time if he had murdered another man and had to dispose of the body and wash a blood stain out of the carpet too.
Couldn't he? That's all you know. Rock Savage could. Believe you me.
Why?
Only the night before we reached Miami, he was prepared to bet anybody that he could change for dinner in under 4 minutes. The Count, or Slick as you call him, took him on. $100 even money, and Rock Savage won the bet. He was back in the lounge, changed again under 4 minutes after he left us. If he could do it then, he could do it again the following night, when somebody put paid to Blane's account. If Rock Savage changed in 4 minutes that night, it would still have 20 minutes free to do Blane in.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. I find that very interesting. That will be all for the moment. That was interesting. I think we just learned a lot. Now, we just learned, obviously, the thing that Mr. Rock Savage can change very quickly. I want to put that in the back of my brain, maybe for later. But I think the more interesting thing is, I do think Reggie is lying to us. I do not believe he was in his room the whole time. I don't think Reginald, despite the lie, I don't think he committed the murder. At least, I think it's unlikely. And this is the reason, right? If he invited Posadini on board to frame him, he would have right away given up the fact that Posadini was a criminal. He didn't. He didn't admit that Posadini was a criminal or untrustworthy or any of that stuff until we kind of forced that out of him, until we admitted it first. You would have expected, like if it was a Columbo episode, the first thing he would have done would have been like, what about Posadini? He seems untrustworthy. No. The first person he pointed at was Rock Savage, and how Rock Savage is massively benefiting financially from this. Now, he did partially do this to cover his own ass, because it's very important to Lady Welter, and by proxy, Reggie, because he lives off of Lady Welter, that the Rock Savage companies do well. So it benefits him too. Maybe if we talk to Fairy, maybe we can crack her, and she'll admit they were doing the dirty deed. Good morning, Miss Rock Savage.
Good morning.
Sorry to trouble you again, but there's just a little difference of opinion between Mr. Jocelyn and yourself as to what time you came down from the top deck on the evening of Blane's death. He says it was 7:30, and you say it was 7:15. Can you clear that up for me?
I'm afraid not. I didn't really notice a time, and perhaps it was 20 or 25 past 7. But surely you're not suggesting that I had anything to...
Oh, of course not, Miss Rock Savage, of course not. But saying it was even as late as 7:25, you didn't get into the lounge, changed until 8:40. That is an hour and a quarter after you came below. Surely that's a long time for even a lady to take, changing for dinner.
But I told you yesterday that I didn't start to change at once. I was reading a book in my cabin for half an hour or so after I came down.
Yes, I remember that. But as you had so much spare time on your hands, it seems a little strange that you should have been 10 minutes late for dinner.
I was interested in my book and I forgot the time. You must know how easy it is to do that if you're deep in an exciting story. My maid will tell you that I did not ring for her until nearly 8:15. That's why I was late.
I see, and you did not see Mr. Jocelyn again after, say, 7:30 at the latest, until you reached the lounge at 8:40?
Why do you ask that?
Well, I'm just going to let you in on something, Miss Rock Savage, which I want you to keep to yourself. It's not your movements that I'm interested in, but Mr. Jocelyn's.
You don't think...
I don't know, Miss Rock Savage, but unless he can bring somebody forward to vouch for what he was up to between 7:30 and 8:10, things aren't going to look too good for him. If, on the other hand, you were with him for longer than you say, we'd forget your previous statement, and that might make just all the difference as far as he's concerned.
No. I wasn't with him after, say, 7:30 at the latest.
All right, Miss Rock Savage, thank you. Damn, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree about them doing it because she's a whore. Maybe they weren't. I still think they were, but she didn't give me anything. If she really cared about him, she might not have. She might have just been putting out, or maybe she wasn't putting out at all. You would think if she cared about him, she would have been willing to say, yeah, he was in my cabin. But she doesn't seem to want to cover for him. Well, I guess we could talk to Fairy's maid to confirm when Fairy said that she rung her maid at 8:25 because she was lost in her book. Let's go find her. Come in. Don't look so scared now. I'm not going to bite you. Sit down, kid.
Oh, I'm not scared.
That's the way. Now, you're Miss Rock Savage's maid, aren't you? Do you help her dress every evening?
Yes.
Did you help her the night that Blane got his?
Yes.
How long were you with her?
She rang for me about 10 after 8, and we weren't through till near 9:15.
How'd you find her when you came along?
All right, she's always cheerful. I'll give her that. She made me hustle, though, getting her out of her dress.
That's so. How was the cabin?
Just like any cabin always is.
Can it with your Daria routine. You know what I mean. Was it all tidy, or did it look as though she'd had a party there?
If she'd had 10 parties, I wouldn't be telling you. I like Miss Fairy, and I like my job.
I get you. Maybe you wouldn't object to a party yourself sometime. Notes concluded on this as having no further reference to the case. No, we can't end on that line. That line's creepy as hell for Kettering. Maybe you wouldn't mind a party, young maid. Whoa, no. Does it come across as weird to anyone else? Or am I just overthinking as I tend to do? And what about the super chill Daria type thing is like Kettering is like, that's what I want my woman to be. The fiery beast of, oh, I don't know. Yes, I was there. Oh, you cannot tame her, but I will try. I don't know that we got anything really out of that was useful. But all that happens is she basically backs Fairy's claim that Fairy said she called her about 8:15. The maid says it's about 8:10. You know, it's all in the same ballpark. I don't think we're getting much here. Let's move on. Maybe we should go revisit Mr. Carlton Rocksavage. Good morning, Mr. Rocksavage.
Morning, Mr. Kettering.
What's the latest quotation for Argus Suds?
Yeah? Oh, they opened at 13.5 this morning. But why the question?
I was just thinking what a fine break it is for you that Blane should have faded out just when he did.
What the devil do you mean?
Only that you must be picking up those Argus shares by the bucketful and making a fine thing out of it. That's all, Mr. Rocksavage.
Now look here, what are you insinuating?
I'm not insinuating anything. I'm only voicing what is quite apparent to anybody who knows anything of your financial situation during the past few weeks. You were up against it, Mr. Rocksavage, up against it pretty badly until Blane's death. But once that happened, it was easy enough for you to get all the financial backing you needed, and you're picking up Blane's shares as hard as you can go, so that before you're much older, you'll have control of his companies as well as your own. That will make you the unchallenged king of the soap market with a secure future. It's a bit unfortunate, though, that Blane should have died on your yacht.
Everything you say is perfectly true. I admit that, as you would see it. I had a strong motive for putting Blane out of the way, but very fortunately, the facts of the case place me absolutely beyond suspicion. I did not leave the lounge until 8:10, so how could I possibly have murdered a man, disposed of his body, and changed for dinner all in 20 minutes?
25, Mr. Rocksavage. You didn't get back to the lounge until 8:35, and I hear that you're an expert quick change artist. I've just been talking to Mr. Jocelyn. He tells me that you wagered Count Posadini $100 that you would change in under 4 minutes on the night before Blane's death, and that you won your bet. If you did that the night Blane died, it would have left you a full 20 minutes to commit this crime and clear up afterwards.
Oh, so Jocelyn said that, did he? But wait a moment, how do you know that he didn't do this job? I passed him in the passage, still unchanged, at 8:10 when I went down to change myself.
Did you now? That's very interesting, because you gotta remember, Mr. Jocelyn said he was in his bath until he went up to the lounge. So maybe he was doing it with Miss Fairy Rocksavage, or maybe he did commit the murder. Did you now, Mr. Rocksavage?
I did, so perhaps you'll exercise your talents in finding out what he was up to between 7:45 and 8:10. There was much more time for him to have done this job than me.
He hadn't got your motive, though.
He certainly had. He's always lived above his income. For the last 5 years, he's been entirely dependent on Lady Welter. She's in a jam because of those fool papers she runs. She loses a packet on them every year. yet she won't give them up because she just lives for this Christian crusading business. If I'd failed to do a deal with Blane, she would have gone under with me, and young Jocelyn would have found himself on his uppers. He stood to benefit just as much by Blane's death as I did. More, in fact. Because even if Rock Savage Consolidated had gone down the drain, I have other resources.
I get your point, Mr. Rock Savage.
How about the Jap, too?
How about him?
Well, he stood to lose $1 million if Blane had lived long enough to come to an arrangement with me.
I'd certainly like to hear some more about that, Mr. Rock Savage.
It's this way. Officially, he's acting for the Shikoku people, and he's been trying to sell me the Japanese soap monopoly on their behalf for months past. But he's playing ball with another crowd called the Totomi Soap Company on the side. They're in a position where they might be able to queer the pitch as a home-producing firm by rousing national opinion against the monopoly going outside Japan, unless they're squared first. Their price was $1 million, so Hayashi wouldn't have got it at all, but I'll bet he stood in for a pretty useful split. I wouldn't conclude, though, once I got the idea of coming to terms with Blane, but if my deal with him had fallen through, Hayashi knew he could count on my signing up. It's plain sailing for him now that Blane's out of the way. Oh, and you know what these Orientals are. He had a mighty strong motive to do Blane in order to prevent Blane and me getting together.
That's certainly something to work on, Mr. Rock Savage, and I'll get down to following up what you said of Jocelyn and Hayashi right away.
Good, and there's no trouble I won't go to in helping your investigation. I don't mind telling the sort of thing that people are going to say on account of Blane having died on my yacht. So it's to my interest more than anybody's that poor Blane's murderer should be brought to book.
Don't worry, Mr. Rock Savage. We'll get him. Well, isn't Mr. Rock Savage a lovely fellow? Well, I think we finally got something new, right? Carlton Rock Savage claims to have seen Mr. Jocelyn at 8:10, passing him in the passageway, when at the same time, Mr. Jocelyn had claimed he was in his bath, in his cabin, and his wife was there too. So maybe Jocelyn was doing it with Fairy. Oh man, Carlton might find out that his whore of a daughter was doing it with Reggie? Oh, that's gonna be awkward, if true. And then we've also found out that supposedly Mr. Hayashi had a secret deal with a Japanese soap company so that the Japanese soap company wouldn't raise a big problem at home with selling the soap monopoly to a foreign company. We also know that this is, I think, the second person to confirm it, that Lady Welter is losing money on her Christian newspapers, Christian Girl Today or whatever it was. But that's gonna have to wait for next episode. In the meantime, did Reginald pass Carlton Rock Savage at 8:10 in the passageway, as Carlton claims, or was Reginald in his bath at that time, as his wife Pamela claims? And did Mr. Hayashi have a reason, or should I say a million reasons, to want to see Mr. Blane dead?